Welcome to the video review and bonus materials from Westeros.org for episode 6, Unbowed, Unbent, Unbroken. We'll be starting with some background material on the water gardens, which were featured in this episode, and we'll give you our highs and lows, and then we'll of course go into our story-by-story coverage of the whole episode.
The Water Gardens of Dorne are a pleasure palace that the Prince of Dorne, Meryn, created for his Targaryen bride, the first Daenerys. I think that's how Dorne puts it. I can't strictly recall if she was absolutely the first Daenerys in the Targaryen family tree, now when I think about it, but she's the most famous Daenerys until the present one, basically. And her marriage to Meryn was something that sealed the union between Dorne and the rest of the Seven Kingdoms. It brought Dorne fully into the fold. Now, it was not without controversy. Daeron was a fair bit older than his sister. Daeron II, Daeron the Good, was the son of the heir to King Aegon the Fourth, Aegon the Unworthy, who was not a very good king, not a very good person, to say the least. But he was a much better king than him. And, his father was very bellicose, had tried to launch a war against Dorne.
Another war
against Dorne, and failed miserably. And ultimately, Daeron tried to fix things. He completed what he saw as Baelor the Blessed's attempt to, complete a peaceful union of the realm together.
That was after Baelor the Blessed's brother, Daeron the Young Dragon, had attempted to conquer Dorne by force, held it for a few years, lost 50,000 men in the process,
very bloody,
eventually lost his life. So then Baelor
made peace with Dorne, and he's the one who arranged for Daeron to actually marry the Dornish princess Moriah as a way to seal a lasting peace. Daeron, and on the other hand, Daeron the Good, when he came to the throne, said, it should be one realm. And he worked tirelessly to kind of unify the two realms. And when he agreed to marry his sister to Prince Meryn, there were those who said that, she loves Daemon Blackfyre, and Daemon Blackfyre loves her. Daemon Blackfyre was the bastard son of his father. And now Blackfyre was also the son of Daena Targaryen. Daena was a sister to Baelor. So he was Targaryen on both sides. He was a great warrior, tall, beautiful, his father gave him Blackfyre. So you have this very complex situation in which Daemon Blackfyre has everything he needs to kind of make a play for the throne, which he eventually did. And by having this alleged disappointment of Daeron marrying Daenerys off to the Dornish, this created huge upset among Daemon's partisans, among people even who weren't partisans of him, who just didn't like the Dornish because the Reach and the Stormlands had fought the Dornish for 1,000 years. And for some, this was one of the causes for what ultimately became the first Blackfyre Rebellion. Now, the World of Ice and Fire complicates this. The World of Ice and Fire points out that there's no clear recorded evidence that she had some great passion for Daemon Blackfyre. It seems likely that Daemon wanted to marry her. It seems very possible that he believed, but the thing is, he ends up marrying quite young. He marries Rohane of Tyrosh, and has many children by her very quickly in a very short span. It's put forward the possibility that he even thought that he might be able to have two wives. He might be able to have Daenerys as a second wife, and that maybe his father, again, remember Aegon the Unworthy, a man known to have 1,000 women in his life, might have indulged him at least in the idea that this might happen. So the romantic picture that the partisans of Daemon Blackfyre hold is a picture, and it may not be the only picture that you have. Now, the Water Garden, Meryn built it for his bride. It was a place of fountains and pools. It was a cool place by the sea to enjoy herself. And there,
to make her feel more at home.
To make her feel more at
desert
home.
country of Dorne. And,
exactly.
So,
there'll be gardens and things. And one of the things is, Daenerys filled it with children. First, the children, her own children, and children of nobles and knights. But eventually, she took pity on the children of the grooms and the stable keepers and so on, and said, the children can play there with the noble children as well. One of the things we learned is when she watched all the children splashing about naked in the water, a blacksmith's child, a kennel master's child, a great lord's child, all playing together, she realized, without the finery, without the clothing, that you couldn't tell them apart. They were all children, they were all one, they were all needing protection and love and help. And she realized this is why. And she told her own son and heir, the first prince who was of Targaryen blood, this is Dorne. This is what you should always be thinking about when you make your decisions. Men may want to go to war to win riches and glory and fame, but ultimately it will be the children who pay the price if things go badly, if Verland gets attacked and defeated. And this has been a lesson, this has been a habit of all the princes of Dorne since then, to have the children from throughout Dorne, from all classes, not all children, but a selection, to come to the water garden and spend time with the noble children and their own heirs, so that they could learn something, to have sympathy for one another. And it is part of what I think creates in Dorne a unique nationalism that we don't see anywhere else. It is a shame that we don't have this in the TV series. We don't see any of the children.
I mean, it also functions, I think, at least with Dorne, we see that it's functioned as a way of building alliances and learning. I mean, because he had people even from outside of Dorne, perhaps as an influence of his wife being from Essos herself.
Certainly, but
so there's definitely, as I did, it contributes to the feeling of nationality, and it contributes to the feeling of, and just as a way of getting people, meetings between children that he hopes will continue in the future. And
we see it in the novel. I mean, Arianne has one of her best friends is Garin, who's an orphan of the Green Blood. They were milk siblings in the fact that his mother nursed her, was a milk nurse for her. But it would be nice to have children running around. But obviously, the Alcazar is a historical monument, and they can't necessarily.
Let's have all these kids splashing about in the pool.
So, but anyway, that is the water garden. I like seeing a shot from a distance of it. The greenery of Dorne, less so, but the water garden was really lovely, and it's a great location.
Yes, it kind of doesn't make sense why they would need a green garden when obviously all of Dorne is apparently very, very green on the show. But there you have it.
So highs and lows. I suppose we could start. Well, I
start high.
Start high.
Yeah, I think so.
All right. Where do we begin then? The high for us has to be Braavos.
Yes.
I think the House of Black and White, the passage there was really well done. I think that
they finally captured some of the atmosphere, I think. The atmosphere hasn't always been their strong suit compared to the novels, and I think here, yes, there's a lot of Arya chapters being compressed here. There's definitely compression going on. There are definitely some things being cut out from her storyline, but again, better cutting than radically changing. And this seemed like a pretty good reworking of some of Arya's time, some of the things that she learns, and the bit with the girl who comes there.
I find it hard to call her the waif because that's the role she basically has.
I was thinking of the later, but okay.
Oh, the later girl.
Yes,
oh, yeah, sure.
That's all invented.
Yes,
but it's an interesting. It seemed like an interesting way of showing, for Arya to show Jaqen that she's ready to take another step. The way that they did the game, I thought, was quite interesting. It worked quite well with the waif. Whatever she is, but we'll call her that. When she, tells her story, and at first I go and like, wait. My initial reaction is like, this is not true. They're making stuff up, and then I realized, oh yeah, of course she is testing Arya here to see what Arya can tell her. Is it true? Is it what parts are true?
Yeah.
And
So I thought that was really, really well done.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, I'm a little bit of two minds. Mostly, I'm positive. The whole of Faces is a triumph, I think, of set design. It is.
This is too dark.
It was very dark. Jerry Podesta, I don't know who his cinematographer was. It was.
I would have liked to.
I've seen a lot of people. I thought when I on first viewing, maybe my screen was a little dark, but I've seen a number of people say that they did find it the dark scenes in this episode very dark.
Yeah.
So that's a negative. But the set design was just amazing. I think. There's a practical question like, why are those faces, dozens of feet up? How exactly do they get a hold of them? Because I mean, I don't know how we'll do it on the show. In the novels, it seems clear that they take the faces and they kind of put them on you, and with your blood. And there's a magical process, anyways.
Yeah, I mean, they seem to make some sort of incision at sort of your hairline.
I think just to have the blood coming down, I guess. It's magical, it's magic, but the face is physically used, and I kind of wonder how it works when they're way up there. So, still, visually it's fantastic. Yeah. I know that from the video they released, they're very proud of it. I do have one qualm, which is the fact that they revealed just how much they built of it, and the fact that 600 individual prosthetic faces were created for it. And now, someone raised a very good point, like, couldn't they have done like 40 and just sort of done duplicates of them?
Yeah, especially when it was so dark. You really couldn't make out much at all of any of the faces. So
I mean, the versatility was really cool, but is that really the best use of the resources? Especially because we have something later where we kind of wonder, like, maybe it's a resource issue. So that's my one
everything issue.
But the other thing I have to cite, the scoring of that scene was really very good.
It's quite different.
Yeah. It's very atmospheric, very eerie, and I think Rami Djawadi really captured that really beautifully. So that is definitely our high. As for low,
it's low. It's very low. It's kind of low down in the Seven Kingdoms.
It's one of the worst things that they've ever done on the show. It's Dorne, and I don't know where to begin. I think it was start to finish. Okay, Gerald Flynn singing a bit of a Dorne Prince's Wife. Nice introduction there. That's
when
fine.
they're riding through the green, rolling.
Fine. I don't understand why.
I mean, it's just lazy, isn't it?
I don't understand why they didn't use Croatia or Spain.
No, they filmed there. No, instead they have to have them riding through a really nice, lush part, plus compositing in more greenery around Sunspear.
Yeah, they added in. I don't understand why. Like, why can't it be a desert country or sort of very arid country?
They've talked about it as hot desert country. Like, no, apparently there's been like a monsoon for the last 50 years.
I don't get it.
No. That's just lazy.
It is, and I'm very disappointed with that. But
that doesn't compare with.
So you got Justine and Marcella. That's fine. It's not what I feared. I thought they would kind of do a whole Romeo and Juliet, and it's very
bland.
It's just a minor setup, and I don't.
A bit of a yawn.
A bit of a yawn. It's nothing. There's nothing. Yeah, squeak. But there's nothing. There's nothing really there to be concerned about, I suppose.
No. Except, man, does Justine have a glass jaw?
Yeah, he one punch and he's out for good. But the sand snakes and it was cheese, pure cheese from start to end.
I mean, you have them going out in broad daylight.
Not knowing, looking around, we know where they're going somewhere.
And putting on veils before. Like,
they're not ninjas. I mean, why are they hiding their identities? What is going on?
Who are they going to be mistaken for? Maybe they're confused and think they're Aiel. They in the wrong story.
Wheel of Time reference there.
Yeah.
I'm really absolutely baffled by who thought this was a good idea.
Broad daylight.
And then Bronn and Jaime just with their bloody, cut up clothing managed to just kind of waltz right in and look around.
Well, they're sneaking a little bit, sort of.
A little sneaky, a little bit, but
you have the intercutting as well. That you start with Tristan and Marcella, and then you cut to Dorne and Ariota watching, so you know that they're up there watching.
Yeah, you have to protect them, and it's like and the coincidence, like they have to be protected, is like almost like, does he know? But at this very moment, Jaime and Bronn are about to come in, and does he know at this very moment, at the same time, the Sand Snakes are going to go out? And then when the sand snakes finally
the
appear
fight
on the scene,
sequence
the
to
fight scene,
end all fight sequences.
it is the worst fight scene the show has ever perpetrated. You know, people may complain about the assault on the Dreadfort because of the whole, like, why did she run and so on, but the actual fighting in that narrow space was really well done, I thought. I mean, it was quite good. This was a hot mess. And I don't... First, let's talk editing. This is a big issue with me about why I disliked last season's Mountain versus the Viper. Decisions they made, like wanting Oberyn's style to be very acrobatic, wushu-based, meant that the actor, Pedro Pascal, couldn't do a lot of the fancy moves, and therefore they had to go and bring in a double, which meant constant intercutting between fancy move and close-up, and then lots of long shots, very distant shots, crane shots, basically, to show the stunt actor doing, you know, the really fancy twirls and spins and so on. And it led to a very, very fast cutting. I mean, I think I measured like 0.86 seconds was the average length of a shot in that fight, which is fast. I pointed some other, Hero, the film of Jet Li. Now, obviously, Asian martial arts film with people who are actual martial artists as the performers, 1.4 seconds. I think Rob Roy, which I think to me is the gold standard of what this scene should have been, that scene should have been like, rather, was like 2 seconds per shot. And it was partly because Tim Roth and Liam Neeson did all their own fighting. And rather than give Roth flips and such to make him seem acrobatic, they just worked very hard to make him seem fast and dangerous. And you could do that. This one, 0.81. There are something like 80 cuts in a 64-second scene. It is ridiculous.
And the thing is, it doesn't help.
And here's the problem. That many cuts in a scene involving 5 combatants. So it's not just one-on-one. You're coming into constant confusion, not just of 2 people fighting and it being edited and butchered in the editing because of the way they did it. It's 5 different people fighting, and you're jumping around between... It is complete confusion. And in the moments when they show long stuff, look, Obara, wushu, so okay, constant cutting away from the actress, gamely trying to do the finish or the open of it, and then cut to her double, kind of completing the move, or filling in the flashy part of the move. You have poor Nymeria, again, the actress very game to try to learn to use that whip. That whip needs a ton of space. So she's standing there awkwardly in the middle.
Everyone's spacing out around. Okay, I'm doing my fancy twirl move here.
Spinning the whip around. So there's all this room that is needed to be able to have that fight. So you have this really awkward staticness where, like, Jaime and Obara over here, and Bronn and Taini over here, and Nymeria's kind of in the middle, and then Taini. Again, the actors, I credit them all for being game and trying.
But somebody should have known not to cast people with no fighting experience.
No stage fighting experience. As far as I can see, none of the actors.
I mean, I have seen. Well, okay, but I can imagine a toddler with a knife looking more dangerous than Taini.
There's one clip that people keep showing, and it is just brutal. In
she's making this little forward motion and looking like...
I can't blame them, but I blame 100% the production, the director, the choreographers, the producers who
decide that they want. Okay, we want the sand snakes and we want them fighting and want to give them all awesome weapons and we're not going to think about that at all when we cast them.
We don't think about it when we cast them. We just
no physicality whatsoever
from any of the actresses. No. It really is. I mean, and even this logic. Jaime had a tougher time with that one Dornish knight than he does with Obara, who is supposed to be presented as, female Oberyn. I mean, that she is supposed to be... Okay, in the book, she's supposed to be a great, skilled, dangerous fighter.
I think she considers herself to be...
Well, it's
top tier in Dorne.
Yes, and now, whether she's top tier or not, I don't know, but she is supposed to at least have reason to believe that she's pretty good. And yet Jaime... And so, okay, on the show... Oh, yeah, well, on the show, she doesn't have to be. Okay, fine. The show has reduced her to being kind of a mediocre fighter who thinks better of herself than she actually is. It still means...
She can't be that well known. Because she
No.
constantly has to announce who she is.
Yes, it's just...
And make a little declamation about who she is. Like, I'm pretty sure that all those people who rushed in actually knew who she were.
Let me point out to how bad this stuff was. Those extras, those guards who came in, we noticed when we were watching, they didn't have any direction about where they were supposed to be looking. You had the guy looking this way, and you had guys...
one was looking cross-eyed.
There was... Look, filming in the Real Alcazar was a coup for the location. And I can understand why it appealed to them. But if it meant that they only had an extremely limited amount of time of rehearsal and practice in that space, it was a huge mistake to use.
They should probably just used it for establishing shot and then built a set.
They could very easily have built a fake garden set and have done it somewhere else.
Yeah.
Because
it really looked like it was badly rehearsed, badly planned, badly executed, and just bad.
It was horrific. It was really terrible. It gave nothing of value.
As people have said, bronze, so for fuck's sake, kind of summed up the whole thing.
The whole thing. I mean, it is...
The look on his face when they rush in is like, Jesus, I'm going to be fighting girls who don't know one end of a knife from the other.
It really is. And then Ilaria looking around back and forth wildly at people coming...
Oh my God, there's somebody coming to arrest me. What did I do? Why didn't my brilliant plan of snatching Marcella in broad daylight work? Well, actually, it seems to have sort of worked because Nim made off with Marcella.
For about 5 seconds.
Yeah, I guess so.
It really is. This is, it's a good thing that we have established that in the show there are no sharks in Dorne, because there are some people who said otherwise this would have been the shark jumping moment of the series.
Yeah. Except I wouldn't credit any of those girls being able to actually jump a shark.
It really is, and presumably we'll see them sand snakes one more time, but this, I mean...
Please, no.
They thought this was better. They really thought that this was better than what was in the book. Really. They don't even give Ilaria the credit of having a better plan than Arianne. She doesn't get anywhere. She doesn't even get out of the bloody water garden with her. It was horrible. It is terrible. I cannot say how disappointed I am. It is...
Yes,
it's unspeakable.
You said for you it was worse than the mess that they made of the House of the Undying.
Yes. Yes.
I can't quite... Well, okay, the end result was actually worse. I mean, what they put on screen instead of the House of the Undying was fine if you didn't know anything about the House of the Undying. I still think it was atrocious to do it. But here they replaced a good storyline with just pure crap.
And it's just like...
Crap storyline, crap writing, crap acting from anyone except Alexander Siddig, basically.
Yeah.
I mean, in fact, I don't give much for Hota either, because...
he has very little to do, so...
Yes, but he seems to have been, just sort of typical, deep-voiced, menacing, kind of very stereotypical.
If we had more about who he was, the Novoshi and the whole thing...
Well, dear God, I hope he's not a Novoshi.
A Novoshi slave. A slave from who was bought into Norvos. We discussed this already. That's my explanation. He was from Norvos. If they had done a bit of that background, that would have been cool. And the fact that, his axe is a glaive. God damn it. It's a glaive. It's not an axe.
They didn't even give him an axe.
It's his wife, basically. He's wed to it in a sort of ceremonial, theological sense. That would have been cool, but there's no time for it. And there's barely any time for Alexander Siddig.
Which is a shame, absolutely.
But there's going to be no time for these sand snakes. We will see him one or two more times, and it will be. I think we will never see them again. People are going to be screaming for more sand snakes. I can't see it. I'm shocked. I saw at least one alleged critic claim, "Well, I want to see more sand snake fighting." I mean, you haven't seen you've seen sand snake miming at best and not doing it well. It was really, it's just horrible.
It was offensive.
It's offensively bad because this show, with all of its resources, with all the talent it has, with all the capabilities...
And that's what we brought up a little bit with the hollow faces. They spent so much time making those 600 individual faces.
Maybe some of that money should have been used
on making three individual sand snakes who could actually do something.
Well, and just more time for pay the stunt people more. I don't know. I can't believe. Obviously, the reason the veils were tossed on was obviously to make it easier to have the doubles. That's the obvious reason.
Yes,
I mean,
but...
I don't know why they bothered trying to briefly kind of hide their faces, but whatever. It was...
But the thing is, even with trying to hide it with doubles, the result is still so alarmingly bad.
I don't know. I mean, I
Nobody looks to be in any danger whatsoever, except that it looks like Obara might possibly twirl that spear into her head. Nym could very well trip herself up with that whip, and Taini is certainly going to stab herself in the foot. Those are the most real dangers.
Yes, really, it was terrible, and I'm very disappointed. So much potential gone to waste. I mean, they took something that was, I think, thematically very rich and powerful. The Mortel family tragedy, which is multifaceted, and it's very deep, and it's beautiful. And they've made a complete hash of it.
Well, they can't spell theme or thematic.
I expect 1, maybe 2 more episodes tops in Dorne.
And probably some stupid damn resolution to how
Jamie gets out
and
of it,
Marcella or whatever gets out of there, right?
So, yeah, that's our low. This is the neater of the season so far. There's nothing that we have disliked more.
No.
There may be stuff we will dislike more to come, but
they'll have to really make an effort to make something worse than that.
Yeah.
The episode opens with Braavos. We've already discussed Braavos a bit in the highs, obviously, since we felt that the Arya part were indeed the strongest of this episode, being, really feeling like what Arya's experience, or some of Arya's experiences in the House of Black and White should be like. Yeah, we would have liked to see some more of, the process of it.
In particular, in novels, one thing that happened at a certain point, she takes a drink, and then she wakes up blind. And after that, she's basically, she's noticed other acolytes who seem to be blind, and they learn through sound and touch and counting steps and how to navigate around. And this is actually a kind of lesson of how to. And it reminds us of course, Sirio's lessons to Arya, talking about how she had to use all her senses as a water dancer. Very interesting that.
Yeah.
But obviously it's a time thing, and it's,
And you think we're going to see, there's another chapter. The interesting part with Arya's chapters, when she reaches Braavos, is that they all start taking other names than Arya. They often have...
The first is Cat of the Canals. Yeah. It's left unclear where they take her to the Whole Faces. Now, we have seen images of Arya in a different costume. The EW had one. And we know that she gets out and about in Braavos.
Braavos street dress.
In the novels... she's sent out to live with a merchant who sells sort of oysters, clams, cockles, and she calls herself Cat. And her chapter is called Cat of the Canals, and Cat after her mother. And she basically learns Braavosi. They've dropped that entirely. As far as I can see, Braavos just speaks the common tongue. And she...
There's a lot more lessons for her.
There's a lot more lessons to learn.
Some of them are not very obvious.
She has to come and teach, say, what are 3 new things you've learned, and she, and it's basically practicing lying and being someone else and all these things. So we see that she kind of is in a costume, but at the same time they take her to the Hall of Faces. Now, when she finally sees that in the book, she's already gone through her Cat of a Canal phase, and she's being sent on her first assassination mission, and she gets the face of the ugly little girl. I am suspicious that what they're going to do is kind of combine it. She will be Cat of the Canals, but she will be wearing the face of, and I suspect it will be the girl that she gave a drink to. That's my guess. The girl even had a line. So I think what they'll do is she'll be Cat of Canals, and she'll have a face, and what we'll see Maisie Williams, but then occasionally we'll get a shot from the perspective of someone else, and they will see that girl.
Probably just this sort of learning a bit more about Braavos and how things work, and because part of the reason I think, now they've sort of made it plain to Arya that she's learning. In the novels, it's for a long time she really isn't very sure what she's learning at all. They kind of passed that phase now, and she has an understanding that she's learning. I did think that the finishing line from Jackie was very nice, that, you know, a girl isn't ready to become no one, but perhaps she's ready to become someone else. So it captures the feel of it, I think.
Yeah. The other bit, of course, we should discuss is when he's questioning her and she's trying to lie, and she offers her, she hated the hound, and he strikes her. And then she insists, and she's insisting that it's true, and he says, you lied to
the gods, to me, and to yourself.
Yes. So that was a nice touch. I mean, Arya does come to sympathize and with the hound. So by making it explicit here, it was, or making her realize that, the reason she couldn't bring herself to kill him is not because she wanted to be cruel, but because she had ambiguous feelings about him. Was, I think, a good touch. Yeah, I enjoyed it. I think Brian Cogman did a very fine job in this, and I mean, this segment, and the overall episode structure, which I mentioned. I mean, this is focused, for the most part, the first part of the episode is focused on Arya. It does interleave it with some of Jorah and Tyrion stuff.
Well, it's focused on Essos, actually, in that sense.
Essos, basically, in that sense. But the big chunk of it is Arya. Yeah. And then at the end, it focuses on the other sister in Winterfell. So I think that was a deliberate structure, and I think that worked pretty well.
I think over the whole,
in fact, here, let me point out something else, or maybe I should wait till we get to the Winterfell section. Well, let's bring it up. We see, one of the things that struck me is that we get a lot of focus on her tending to the bodies, cleaning the bodies, preparing the bodies, washing the hair, and they actually mimic some of the stuff in the Winterfell scene, where Miranda is washing Sansa's hair and washing out that dark wash.
Could you even say that the sort of passage into the Hall of Faces, the darkness there, kind of mirrors the passage into the Godsword in a sense?
I really think so. I obviously, Podesta got this idea of kind of paralleling these sisters going to these places and having very different choices and touching dark, things. So I think that thematically, they actually managed some really beautiful things in this episode. So it is a shame that the Dorne business happened, and it's a shame of something else that we'll discuss later. But let's move on to the rest of Essos. The rest, somewhere in Essos is Tyrion and Jorah. Fine scenes, I think, in terms of Ian Glenn's doing great. I think the great touch of Tyrion telling him about Mormont. I can't recall where he learns about it on the show, to be honest. I don't specifically remember it.
I thought somebody suggested on Twitter that it was when he was acting as Hand.
No, that's wrong, because he dies in season 3 and Tyrion's no longer Hand. That's true. So I told him that doesn't work. So it has to either be a late season 3 episode in a council scene, or it has to be season 4. Yeah. But it's very soon in season 4. It did strike me
because, I mean, in the books, right, Tyrion doesn't actually, as far as we know, Tyrion doesn't know. Tyrion hasn't reflected on it.
No, but the news doesn't seem to have reached down to, so...
and the specifics about a mutiny and... I mean, we'd have to assume that he heard about Jon becoming Lord Commander. Well,
the piece of news they get at King's Landing in the book is, Aemon writing to various places, asking for help, saying that Mormont has led this expedition.
That's true.
And he sent a raven about an attack, so they know about the attack on the Fist of the First Man, but they don't know the result. And then things sweep Tyrion away. So it'd be interesting if anyone watching this actually knows what scene in season 3 or season 4 features King's Landing having news. I'd be very interested. Otherwise, it feels like a little bit of a of course it happened off camera, or someone told Tyrion at some point. Maybe Boris informs Tyrion when they leave. I don't know.
Yeah.
But anyways, so that was a lovely scene. And also I thought it was very interesting to have Tyrion kind of question, why Dany, because she's the daughter of the Mad King who got his jollies burning people. Does she really be...
I mean, the two scenes are kind of nicely mirrored in the sense that first you have Jorah asking Tyrion why he's in Essos.
Yeah.
And Tyrion wonders, well, it didn't occur to you until now to wonder about that, basically. And then, in the next segment, he asks Jorah, why Dany?
So I thought that was really good. And then, of course, the slavers come in. Great to see, the actor, known for characters like Adebisi in Oz, and Mr. Echo, of course, on Lost.
And you don't remember precisely how to pronounce his
Adewale,
name.
I know his first name. I'm very sorry. I'm blanking on his last name. I used to know it, but
it's an
Adewale,
A, right, as well. It's A something A.
I think so.
Yeah,
I could look it, but I'm very sorry. Complicated names and my memory are not great.
No.
But I thought someone did have a concern in saying that the slavers were all presented as black men. It's not true. There are Caucasian men in the mix, but the leaders are. But some are islanders, or they're supposed to be carrying out slavery. I don't think they're supposed to be summer islanders. George has the Basilisk Isles. There are dark people there. There are, and also
they're noted as slavers and pirates, right?
Yeah, the Basilisk Isles was very known for its corsairs and its slavers. Sulfurios is known for its mud and blood towns in which slavery, so it's not unknown. It's not unusual. Having pirates/slavers from the Basilisks, not strange at all.
Mind you, it is kind of following a little bit that whole stereotypical thing that they've got going on about we need to cast more people of color, and where do we do it since the characters described do not fit? Well, we stick them in smaller roles like making Argo Hota. I mean, it's stereotypical to have the big guardsman be a big black guardsman. He's not black in the books. So yes, it's a way of
creating diversity, but at the same time, you're shoving people into...
Because you can't change the major roles.
Yeah.
At least they've decided that, and thank God for that, because,
I doubt any of the actors actually have the roles mind very much. They're happy to have the jobs.
Yeah. But I'm saying, but it does create the roles that you see. You've got Salador Son being switched out for a black character as well. So you've got a pirate.
Yeah.
You've got a guardsman in Argo Hota.
Yeah.
You had Zorozo and Daxus being made black, so you've got the untrustworthy fellow who apparently lies about being rich.
Yeah. No, the picture that you get of is a little there. So I think people say, well, is dubious representation better than no representation at all?
I think because they feel that they have to squeeze people in, they pick the roles that they can. I mean, that's it. In this case, it's not wrong. It's not wrong from the Westerosi perspective, or from the setting perspective.
To have slavers from the Basilisk or what have you,
yes. Makes perfect sense. But the overall picture ends up coming out
on the show is
a particular type of roles that they are able to do this.
It has a strange diversity where you kind of feel like, I mean, I said myself, but I know you yourself disagree, but like Carf in the second season, they were supposed to be. I mean, the Carfine are these very pale people, or kind of is noted.
The milkmen.
Milkmen is what the Dothraki call them. To me, my main issue was just consistency, so I kind of didn't quite fit where Zorro fit in, and then they explained it by, well, he's actually from some Isles, they should have changed his name. Never
mind that the Carfine are actually also supposed to be highly sort of xenophobic and exclusive in...
Well, they
talk about their pure blood, and they
the nobles talk about being the purebred, but anyways...
pure blood.
The pure blood, sorry. But in any case, I wouldn't call it xenophobia. That's particular to a nobles.
But I think it would be very hard for an outsider to establish.
But within the merchants, I don't know. But that said, if they said, "Oh, and here is Carf," and all the people are black, or all the people are, so long as they could be consistent about it, I wouldn't have minded that personally. Like, fine. Obviously, they have difficult. The reality is they have to film in Croatia, and can they find that many actors and extras to pull that off? So I understand that they can't. But the person I missed, I wish they had Brown Ben. Yes, people say, "Oh, Brown Ben is such a racist name." It doesn't matter. I think the character is cool.
People are being called all sorts of things as by names.
Yes, he's an interesting, kind of complicated, not a good guy by any means, but kind of interesting character. And I do miss him. But I miss many characters that don't make it into the show. So I think he would have been an interesting one for an actor to have something that didn't feel big, silent thug or liar, cheat, scam artist or slaver. Anyways, the show at least shows that there's not just these black men. They are the leaders, but there are others involved. And the performance is good. I have to say, I have to laugh. That was really funny. The whole, the thing is that the whole thing about a dwarf's cock has magical powers. That's in the books. It's Tyrion who makes the claim, the jest. Yeah. So they took that and Brian took that and gave it to them and gave it treated it seriously. Like there's people who believe that a dwarf's cock has magical powers.
So now we're sitting here wondering, how does a cock merchant operate?
Well, to me, I think
I've got this image, which sort of like Aladdin-esque image, where somebody's going, when he gets the lamp initially, you've got the person who's trying to find this old lamp, so it's like old lamps for new. So I'm thinking of somebody going out trading cocks around, and then, but I don't want to get into the whole rubbing it, and then comes a genie. Anyway, there's a cock merchant somewhere in Westeros. Apparently,
if anyone knows the creator behind the Olaf, rather raunchy webcomic series, this is. Pointer to this, please. I would.
Please, we need a strip about the cock merchant.
Yeah. Yes. It was very funny anyway, so...
and I guess Tyrion's think again
was
pretty good.
A lovely bit of continuity. I killed the Fraggy Blood Rider, liar, and the Kofo...
Well, actually, there were two nice callbacks there, because Mormont talks about seeing the dragons being born, talking about, have you ever heard baby dragons sing? The best sequence so far on the show. Like the most amazing moment
for you, yeah.
Yeah, and then the callback to him.
I didn't like baby dragons because baby sounds a little infantile. Newborn dragons might have.
But at least the moment.
In the moment, but the moment, and even also a bit of continuity porn or Final Fire porn. And I mean, credit to Brian Cogman. I think he's the one who most often delves into the books for little details because he throws, Jorah. Unseated the Kingslayer, the tourney at Lannisport, and obviously he dismisses it. Now, he does it in the books, and I can't recall if this has been mentioned on the show, but he did defeat him. In the book, they basically break so many lances, and it's a draw, and basically then it's Robert Crowns declares that Jorah rode a bit better, and gives it to him. I think Robert probably enjoyed tweaking Jaime there. So he doesn't literally unhorse him, but it was a good close contest. So I love that sort of thing, and so that works very well, and I think it sets up what comes next. Obviously, Malcolm will be very disappointed to discover that it's not slaves anymore in the fighting pit. So actually, I kind of wonder how it goes from him.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if they're basically taking him away from saying, "Oh, there's no slaves here anymore." He's obviously missed the news. Or rather, he hasn't missed the news. He knows Danny is out there, but he heard the fighting pits are reopened, and he can't imagine fighting pits with 3 men. No. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there.
Yeah.
It's a really good segment. So King's Landing is
well, there is something that smells like shit, just like Olenna says.
Yeah, well, okay. There's arrivals. We have Littlefinger arriving, and he has his run-in with Lancel. And there's a little bit about the brothel, and what fantasies peddlers do. We both peddle fantasies. Littlefinger is very blasphemous here, but mine are entertaining.
He obviously feels quite secure.
Yeah, he feels quite secure, but he can give. I don't know what those guys were supposed to be following him. Were we just the idea he has a couple of sellswords and their costumes? They weren't Veilmen. They were just kind of random armored.
Yeah, maybe that is showing that he's not feeling that secure. He wants some sort of backup.
Yeah, but then with Cersei, his plan, or at least the next step in his plan, is unveiled, and that seems to be, hey, Sansa Stark married Ramsay Bolton, and Roose is basically implying that Roose is the one who got her out of King's Landing,
and then he offers his own army, as he calls it, or more or less.
Well, the Vale, the Knights of the Vale.
Yes, he implies that he can control that and get them in to deal with whoever survives the fight of
between Stannis and clever in a sense, but it raises huge questions why in the world can he get away with... Qyburn doesn't seem to be doing his job at all. Qyburn is Master Whisperer. He seems to have absolutely no ability to get any information. Fine, if you want to say that. But it just seems so easy for him to convince her of this. And, too easy. There's no moment...
Well, I guess he's playing on the fact that she gets immediately very
I did like the fact that Lena Headey again got a chance to play the Cersei of the book for a moment with her outburst. That's more of a outbursts are nice from her. So that. But then you can see the manipulation. You can see, and also I kind of twigged a bit. Oh, Knights of the Vale, men, trained to fight in the snow and ice. The Vale, like in the mountains, obviously will get very snowy and so on. So, but are they kind of replacing the clans of the North? Are they kind of replacing the Northmen basically? Because the Northmen, outside of Bolton's forces, there don't seem to be any other Northern forces except like Robb is supposed to have taken everything, and it's a desolate wasteland. So, I have this notion that of how they're imagining kind of bringing the storylines back into line. But to me, the interesting bit is this: he seems to feel confident in the Vale, like he can lead them to go.
And what's he gonna tell them? He's telling Cersei that he's taking the forces up there to, basically bring King's justice, which includes, arresting Sansa so that she can be executed. I'm not sure that's going to fly so well with the
Vale. Lord Royce, Lady Waynwood,
it's Sansa
bent to Littlefinger's plans when they realized this is Sansa Stark. I just kind of imagine, are they going to have the Vale somehow be far more beholden to the Starks in some way? Like maybe they have a huge respect for Ned, but we don't know about, and so...
Well, then he still has to hide from
attention.
them, basically. Tell Cersei one thing, and them one thing.
Okay, but he says to them, we're going to go rescue Sansa. Yeah. The Boltons... I thought she'd be safe.
There was absolutely no communication between either side.
Yeah, I thought she'd be safe in Winterfell. Turns out it's not. We had to go rescue her, and the Vale says, all right.
Oh, yeah, and by the way, for anyone who said that Littlefinger knew what he was doing when he left her in Winterfell and knew everything about Ramsay, that was confirmed by the producers in an interview that he knew absolutely nothing about what a monster Ramsay was. He was clueless.
Yeah, more about that later. But so that was all. I thought it was kind of interesting, but is that his game? Like, does he want to be Warden of the North, and then he's gonna kill Sansa, or marry Sansa? Marry Sansa and say, nah, that works better.
Yeah.
More likely to me is what I'm saying is by getting her to allow him to say, okay, you get your army up there because Sir Kevin can't get an army for me. Isn't gonna get an army for me. Jamie's not around.
Jamie's not sensitive.
He's gonna have his army. He's gonna have whatever remnants he adds from the Boltons and Stannis forces, and say, and now we're marching on King's Landing. Which Cersei has made sure is not going to have any Tyrell protection. So is that the grand plan? Littlefinger, King Littlefinger and Queen Sansa.
Yeah.
At least on the show, I don't think that's quite like that. But,
I mean, there is a chance that she's going to be going up north, I guess. On the
the thing is, in the book, that the plan is that she is going to get married to Harry the Heir, and she's going to come out as Sansa Stark. And the Knights of the Vale are going to be moved to pledge their swords to her to reclaim Winterfell and the North for her.
Whether she's going there herself,
I would expect so. Yeah. Actually, so I think when they took her to Winterfell, they know from George that ultimately her story does take her to the North. But obviously they're taking a very different path. And again, we'll talk about all that later. Now, King's Landing has more than just Littlefinger and Cersei. It has Olenna and Cersei.
Yeah.
It has Olenna in general. What was the first bit in that Marjorie scene that you disliked? Marjorie, there's one bit that you pointed out.
She's telling Marjorie that Renly shagged half the stable boys in the Seven Kingdoms and nobody cared. I'm pretty sure that Renly did no such thing.
No.
And
also
they're all again making it like, everybody knows.
No.
And it's like it's a nothing. Like, yes, the faith is going overboard. This is the odd thing how they're treating homosexuality. First they're treating it like, it's absolutely nothing. Everybody knows. It's just a little bit of gossip. And then they're having the faith take an absolutely extreme view of it. Whereas in the books, it is not so casual as Olenna originally portrays it. It is kind of a dirty secret that you do keep quiet.
And it actually explicitly in A Clash of Kings, when Tyrion sets up Shay with her manse, the servant, the sort of a lead maid, is a woman who used to be servant in Renly's manse, and
was known to be discreet.
You need to be very discreet about the goings-ons that went on there. So it was, you didn't talk about these things.
You know, people make jokes about it, and it's something that you don't want to get at.
The Starks had no idea, but apparently it was homosexual. None whatsoever.
And then the Faith, on the other hand, does not treat it as like, oh my god, we have to burn you at the stake immediately. It's a sin.
It's a sin. It's a venal sin. It's
one among many other sins. It's probably, I don't know where it stands if you compare it to something like...
I mean, it's sex out of wedlock.
Yes.
It's this fornicating without, and it's a little... It's not like that. So I don't mind the idea, but the High Sparrow introduces an extreme for some reason.
But it's all that overall on the show they decided to take it to two extremes. That
Yeah. So, the Olenna Cersei scene... Now, it did have a very funny line. We do appreciate that one. But, that's quite tart response from the famous Queen of Thorns and
the famous tart tongue of the Queen of Thorns. And
the
famous
tart. The Queen Mother. That was a nice exchange. I like Cersei using the whole, I'm writing and ignoring you, I'm busy and I'm ignoring you, because Tywin did that to Tyrion, if you remember. When Tyrion came to see his father. Basically just wrote and just waited for him to talk, and he largely ignored him. So she learned her lesson there. But then this inquest is a bit of a new thing, a sort of pre-trial. But now when we're done with it, we see why we introduced this idea, which is namely to set up Marjorie into basically perjuring herself.
I mean, there are problems with the logic of this thing, and that
there's one giant
giant problem is the testimony that Oliver offers, that he has seen the birthmark that Loras has. It doesn't matter that it's high up on his thigh. He said he squired for Loras. Squires help you dress and bathe, and they're gonna see you naked.
Properly speaking, in the setting, it would not be abnormal for a squire to have some point seen his knight in a nude.
No.
It is just like we see Ned when Jory comes in. I think Ned is fairly casual about getting his clothing on or whatever. Pod picks out clothing for Tyrion. I think helps him dress. All Laura's here to say is he was my squire. Hey.
Yeah.
Now they might say, well, it still raises enough questions that we have to. But then, certainly, it makes the Marjorie claim, his claim against her, like, that should... So, it's really weak. It's really weak to get into a position. But the whole point of it was to get Marjorie so they could put her on trial.
But that, too, is complicated in the sense that for them to know to ask the question of Marjorie, that means that someone told them, someone got reports of what Oliver was testifying.
I have no problem with the idea of the High Sparrow story. They seized him because he's gay and he worked in a brothel, and they were questioning him, and he revealed this to save his skin.
Yes.
But it feels very strongly like then the High Sparrow went and told Cersei, and Cersei knows
and then we can do, and basically told him, you have to ask that. I don't even know, did she tell him that we're trying to set up Marjorie, or did she just basically try to manipulate? It feels like the High Sparrow allowed Cersei an awful lot of influence on his trial.
It feels odd to me, but it, because he's not presented as some sort of devious, ambitious man who he's a zealot.
Yeah.
He's
not going after Marjorie just because I'm gonna nail the queen too. Like,
because he's not doing it because Cersei tells. I mean,
it feels like he's much more of a lackey of Cersei.
Yes, maybe that's deliberate. I don't know. I mean. It'll be interesting to see, I guess, but it just felt odd. Performance-wise, Finn Jones, fantastic. I thought he did a great job. The intensity and his sort of denying, his defense of he was Renly's friend, and I thought that was great. I think Finn has been kind of criminally underutilized in the show. Yeah. I think if they had given him the scope to play Loras hero of the books, he would have been able to play that Loras very well. I think we're never going to see him in his white cloak, alas. No. But great job there, and his outrage when Oliver reveals that. No, it was really good. And obviously, you can see time has passed. He's grown quite a bit of a goatee between those scenes. So
Time is a
time is fluid.
strange thing on Game
It's fluid,
of
but at
Thrones.
least they hear they said like we have to have at least a couple of weeks. I mean,
Yeah.
certainly Olenna has to hear about it and come charging off from.
Yeah.
It probably took her about a week to get from Highgarden.
Yeah.
More like a month for somebody in the books, but anyways.
Well, at least Cersei did give us a distance. Remember that? We did get a distance marker for the Winterfell. For Winterfell, right?
1,000 miles.
Yes, which
well,
seems
half the distance.
half that it should be, but still seems a bit more than what they've actually given in travel times. So
Yeah.
Maybe Westeros has grown again.
Yeah, I mean it fluctuates.
It's the size of plot.
All right, that's King's Landing. I think these lesser stories. I mean, the big stories are Braavos and Winterfell. They're the big focus, and then you have the small stories. And I think on the whole, I think I preferred Jorah and Tyrion to King's Landing. But King's Landing was, I think, pretty solid.
It's solid. It's just that
Olenna did not. I think we said last season we were getting a bit tired with the way they were writing Olenna and finding her. I think she's hilarious. I think the Queen of Thorns is great in the book. I think they gave her too much of a role. Like she was the focus of the Tyrell story, and I thought it should have been Marjorie. You have, not that I'm a tremendous fan of Natalie Dormer, but you have her there. You have Finn Jones there. Why is the grandmother the one holding all the meetings and doing everything? I didn't get that.
No, but we've got Diana Riggs.
Yeah, but now this one, I can feel like Marjorie is off balance, and Loras is in prison, and there Olenna coming in to kind of take a hand to things, I think made sense, and I think I like the writing here. Other than probably have the term pillow biters, so I hate that term. I feel it's completely wrong for a setting. It just doesn't fit.
No.
It's so juvenile.
Yeah.
I don't care for that. But otherwise, this worked pretty well for me, and her frank exchange with Cersei, talking about Tywin, how she didn't like him, but she respected him, and I thought that was all quite good. Yeah. But I think I like Jorah and Tyrion a little bit more. It's fewer
They're
characters.
just sort of big. I think the logical problems with the King's Landing storyline.
Technically, next we're going to talk Dorne, but I think we've said everything we can bring ourselves to say.
Yeah.
So let's go on to Winterfell. Now this one is some serious stuff to discuss. So Winterfell. Wow.
We open up with
Sansa
Miranda helping.
I thought that scene at least worked interestingly well.
It was better than the other exchange between Sansa and Miranda.
Yes, it was. I still don't quite see the whole purpose, but here the main thing that I take out of it is the important thing here is Miranda reveals what a monster Ramsay is for the first time. She's already gotten the sense from the previous episode
that he's a little unstable.
That he's unstable and not a nice person, and that maybe what Littlefinger said that he's enamored of her is not true.
No.
But now she knows that he is a monster who gets bored of women and hunts them for sport. And so she must have been terrified later when she goes like Godwood and looking at him. And yet, when's the only time you can be brave? It's when you're scared.
Yeah.
That's a huge courage from her to do that. Now, with Miranda...
I think she plays some part here doing that. And whether she's doing it on Ramsay's orders or whether she's just doing it...
No, she's doing it herself.
For jealousy.
Yeah.
Expecting Sansa to run away.
A last-ditch effort to get her to say, no, I won't marry you. Or maybe just to be as cruel as possible. Yeah. Sansa, of course, musters the anger and the will to tell her off. And was like, I'm Sansa Stark, and this is my home, you can't frighten me. And Miranda seems a little taken aback and abashed and departs. Good performance there. And then the gown we see Sansa in, I have to say, it's a gorgeous outfit. And I think I love the fact that she has the Tully fish on the bodice there. But her mother had in her gowns. So that was a nice little nod there. Yeah. Obviously, probably found in the ruins of Winterfell or in what was left of her room. And Theon, I mean, that scene was, I thought, quite strong. The costuming all black, and how he is. He's broken, and he's terrified of being punished. And she's like, I don't care if you get hurt. I'm not. All of this is really good, and right into, I mean, the set design and the lighting,
in a sense, you get kind of a parallel, although it's a little late, between Sansa and Theon and Arya and the Hound. In the sense that Arya ends up as a companion to the Hound, whom she initially hates for what he's
killing Micah
and all of that. So, and here Sansa is ending up with Theon, whom she also loathes, and we'll see with that. We will have seen in this episode that Arya came to realize that, well, in the end, she didn't
hate him,
at least not as much as, or just that, or
it was more complicated.
Yeah, it was more complicated than that.
Yeah, we'll be interested to see. But I the wedding in the Godswood, I think it was really gorgeously done again. We already discussed the fact that maybe there's a bit of parallel to hold the faces in Arya, but I thought that the lighting and everything, it was just really beautiful. I mean, this episode features some of the most beautiful set design that they've done. So very intense stuff. Because then we get to the thing that has set the internet alight. It has made many book fans absolutely outraged. The episode on our forum.
Many show fans too, apparently.
Many show fans as well. Many. This episode is the lowest rated of any show on our forum ever. There are far more 1 votes than 10s. I think there are more 1s than there are 10s and 9s combined, which has never happened before. It's rating like a 5.25, 5.21, which is, I mean, even for all the stick our forum gets for being purist haven or whatever, in general, episodes end around 7-ish. The lowest rated episodes were around 6.3 or something. This one is well under, and I think it's a shame because
it's actually a pretty good episode.
It's a pretty good episode. And look,
it's got some of the strongest things this season, and
it does have a very dark, ugly end, but it's intended. It is not the Jamie Cersei thing where they screwed up the editing and where it was supposed to be more
which also got very strong reactions on the forum and low rating because of that.
But otherwise, pretty good episode. It got. I always felt that it was it got less of a attention, less of a liking than it deserved, just because people saw that and they reacted. They judged immediately and they reacted. Now the fact is, Nikolai, Lena, and the director kind of made a play.
As we said last year, we don't agree that they were intending to portray a rape. We don't.
They've said
think. We don't.
The actor said so. It wasn't intended.
When looking at it closely, we don't think that is what they've shown either. But yes, there's a problem that we had to look closely. Yeah, that is a problem.
Yeah, we had to look really close to see that she was kissing him back, but she was grabbing him, pulling him towards her. The editing, they wanted to make it really ambiguous, and they went too far, and it turned into a rape scene for many people.
So it was an editing problem. This is obviously not the same.
This is very clear. This is clearly a rape. Ramsay goes out of his way to humiliate her, to violate her, to make her deflowering, as unpleasant, as horrible as possible. He is raping her.
I mean,
and it is.
Some people will say, well, because we've gotten into some other arguments similar about the whole marital rape situation in Westeros. And the thing is here, it's quite clear that, if Ramsay had insisted on a consummation of the marriage for the fact that, dynastic reasons, basically. If you get married, you have to consummate the marriage. It's a duty of both the husband and the wife. If he had done so in a polite fashion.
What do you mean?
In a humane fashion.
Appropriate. I mean,
we are married. It is our duty to have sex.
She makes a choice in the God's word.
Yes, she's clearly prepared to have sex with him.
To go, carry through the consummation, but not to be brutalized.
No. So the way that the way he does it, and the fact that he intends it to be a rape, makes it very obviously a rape.
Yes, I mean, there's no question in my mind. I mean,
but I don't think Sansa went in. There's no question in my mind that Sansa didn't go into that room
be raped.
She didn't go into that room thinking we're not going to have sex.
Yes, she assumed the consummation was going to happen because she's nervous about it. She's a virgin, and she
knew that what Tyrion did, not touching her, was
unusual,
very unusual.
Yeah. So, but certainly when she said, "I take this man," she doesn't think, and now you can go and rape me. That's not what, I mean, that's not in her head. And so, that aside, I think the reaction to people, I can understand, this is a big change. And we have commented how the things they've done to make this happen have been stupid. Like, I know nothing about you, Ramsay Bolton, even though you've been leaving flayed corpses all around, even in Castle Corwin.
The hoops they had to jump through to get Sansa to Winterfell and get the storyline to happen were enormous.
Yeah.
It was a stupid choice. We have serious misgivings about taking that direction. But when you've got Sansa there, in Winterfell, taking the place of Jane Poole, of Ramsay's bride, to have something else happen would be false.
Yeah.
Ramsay's bride is raped on their wedding night. No matter who it is. People are going to react more strongly when it is a character that they know. And this is the same in the books. Jane Poole, up until that point, it's quite a minor character. She's Sansa's friend. We hear a few things about what happens to her after Sansa is captured. We see a couple of things when she's sent off to play fake Arya. I mean, she's pretending to be Arya. She's not pretending to be Sansa. She's pretending to be Arya because Arya is the one who's lost.
Yes.
We have Jamie's perspective on sort of, she seems very sad and frightened. It's clear that she's had a very hard time. And so you haven't spent as much time with her as a point of view character, but it's quite clear that George wants you to sympathize with her too. He expects the reader to be thoughtful enough to be able to feel her pain as well.
Yeah.
So in that sense, there shouldn't be any difference between it being her or Sansa in this position.
No, I think one of the things George always tries is, he says every character is the hero of their own story. Every character has more or less humanity. I mean, there's very wicked, horrible characters, but for the most part, most characters are, and he even said, the jailers who held Braavos, he just thinks little ideas about them. Like, they just have funny names, and you barely hear any words from them. But George said, he thought, when he writes these characters, he thinks that, this guy's feet hurt, and he can't wait to sit down, and this guy, he's got a shrew of a wife who berates him, so he prefers not to go home, and he tries to imbue all the characters with something to make you think there's more to them, that they are human, they are people, they have humanity. So with Jane, yes, she's not a point of view character. Yes, when we see her abuse, her brutalization, it's from the point of view of Theon. And Theon is horrified at the fact that, I mean, it goes even further in the book. I mean, not only is he a witness, he is a participant in her brutalization, in her rape. But he's horrified for her as well. Yeah, I mean, he's horrified for his own sake. He's fearful for what Ramsay's going to do to him. But he's also very fearful and horrified for Jane's sake. And I think it's clear here what he witnesses. To me, what he witnessed on the show, yes, they close on Theon. But before they close on Theon, you have Sansa's face. They pull away and don't show what happens after that to her. You only hear it and you kind of vicariously experience it for Theon's reaction. That's to the good. If they had actually shown it, I think people would have been far more traumatized by this than they were. As it is, it's still horrible enough that you're feeling, oh my God, Sansa, and you're saying, and I think when Theon's tears are having to witness her being raped, who was like a sister in a way, a person that he knew. So to me, it's really complex.
I mean, he's a victim of Ramsay as well. Seeing Ramsay victimize someone else.
No.
I think that people are, perhaps because the way Theon has acted in the past, people may think that he has very little sympathy for someone else. But to see someone else put in a very similar situation to the abuse that he suffered at Ramsay's hands, there's no way he can't sympathize. I mean, I agree that it is easier in the book, because there you actually have his thoughts, and you know that he's not just thinking about himself, you know that he's thinking about Jane as well. So just seeing his face is a problem perhaps of the medium, the fact that
some would just realize it's all about Theon.
It's all about Theon. As you say, they made the choice not to show Sansa's face for the reason that they felt that would simply be too strong to stomach.
But I mean, so much of it is focused on her face. I mean, not just at that moment when she's been told to undress and she's turning away. When he says, no, Reek, you're not going, you get to watch.
Yeah.
The look of
it's
shock and dismay.
her perspective up until that point.
It's both. I mean, it's about all those people in that scene. It's not just about one or the other. So we have a lot more to say. We're going to be doing a separate video. I actually ended up staying up much later than I planned when I took a little issue with something that a well-known Twitter and Game of Thrones blogger and the Angry Got fan said, and we had a very long, complicated discussion, and we decided, he suggested that we do 2 video blogs. He does one, and I do another, explaining our positions. Now, I want to emphasize, we have big issues with Sansa being here in the first place. And I think we can say, they could have just as easily have worked her into the role of Lord Manderley or Barbary Griswold, coming in as sort of Littlefinger's protege to kind of be as a go-between and have her not actually end up married. They could totally have done this. But I can see...
Well, this was probably a little bit of, we really like Alfie Allen.
We really like the Reek storyline. Yeah. That's one thing. We think that the Vale storyline is such a slow burn that we can't really use it. How can we get the most meaningful, rich story? And this is, if we can keep the Reek thing and we can get Sansa into a position where she is a more actualized and more self-aware and stronger Jane Poole. But she's someone who, because Jane needs Theon to get away. Jane is brutalized. She's broken. She is broken. She's completely broken by this. I don't think Sansa...
True. I think they're probably going to play it where Sansa is the more active in...
She's not going to be... No. So people say, they're regressing her to a victim. And look, like, she's a player in the book. She's a player. People are assuming that they understand her storyline. But from now on, 6 and 7, it's just a straight uphill for her. She's going to be a player. She's going to defeat everyone.
George doesn't do that.
She's going to have... Look, and the other thing is, they talk about her as a player. What I see is a young woman who's learning to be a player, but who is a pupil and a puppet of Littlefinger. In fact, we noted in the last season, when she speaks up and tells the truth to the Lords of the Vale, that's actually more agency that she's given by the show that she had in the books. Because in the books, they have a completely... I mean, Littlefinger had an actual plan. He had an alibi. Yes. And he just directs her to follow through with the alibi. Here, Littlefinger has no plan. He is exactly as stupid as and when they need him to be stupid. And Sansa saves him by saying, I've got to tell them who I really am and what was really going on. More or less. Yeah. So I think they developed already, I think they've established already that yes, Sansa has entered a brutal, ugly situation. And actually, it's worse than she could have imagined. And she didn't consent to being raped. It was not what she signed on for, okay? But she is strong, and she's going to be able to survive this, and I think she's going to have her revenge in the end, I think. So I think, or rather, she's going to have her day. Yeah. Okay, maybe she won't personally have revenge, but she will survive it, and she will come out of it. Will her story follow what they're doing? I think, as I said, I think maybe her story does take her in the novels to Winterfell under very different circumstances. And as George has said very recently, I mean, they're going to get to different paths to the same ending. So, I absolutely understand. And again, we have huge questions about it. But as that they have done it has to be accepted. And I think you have to kind of... certainly can understand misgivings about
how they're going to handle it.
How they handled it, because there's been big issues about how they've handled sexual matter before, how they've handled violence before. I absolutely understand, how they've handled this subject of rape before. Completely understand the misgivings, but I think because we don't know the end story for Sansa, because we don't really know that she's just going to be a player for the next 2 books and is going to be in control at all times. It seems very unlikely, but we don't know. And because we don't know what's going to happen in these final 4 episodes, and we don't know what's going to happen in the next season of a show with Sansa, I think it's early for people to then make, like, just like I thought it was, like, when that final episode last season showed Cersei and Jaime getting it on, and she's the active person, she's pursuing him, I think people, maybe they realize, okay, now I see what Nikolai and Lena were saying, but it was supposed to be more ambiguous. They weren't intending to be a rape. And it's the same thing. Yes, it's a rape, but I'm saying is, people are judging this
how
as
they're
if
going to
it's...
handle it, what the fallout is going
what the fallout to be. And I wait and see what the fallout is. If Sansa bounces right back from it and it's like, it's nothing, or...
But it's quite clear from the preview that that's not the case.
No, it's quite clear. But if they do something with it that just feels completely false to what happened, to untrue to the spirit of what happened and what happened to Jane and Theon, I think I can totally understand. But the rush of judgment is a bit fast. I think it's hard and it's ugly, and it was a big step from them to take. But that they've done it's done. What's done is done, and I think. Are they going to treat it?
It was done the moment they put Sansa in Jane's place.
Yeah.
Anything else would have
been wrong.
Been absolutely wrong.
We could question them putting her in Jane's place. I said maybe they could have found some other way to get her to Winterfell without going to that direction.
But they made that choice.
But they made a choice, and I think...
I was concerned that they weren't actually going to go through with it, because I think that would have been worse.
Far falser than if they're going to say you're going to get married to Ramsay, and Ramsay will... Yeah, I'm a horrible monster, try and scare you, and to say, I won't rape you today, maybe tomorrow, and play that. That would have been just bad. I thought maybe that's what they were doing when he did the whole, I forgive you, and smiling sadistically, like he loved the mind games as well. But, what they did is true to the spirit of the novels. George doesn't shy away from rape. He doesn't shy from violence, and the horrors of violence, all violence. The violence done to Theon. Yeah. You may, whatever you think of Theon, the horrible things he did, castration is sexual violence.
Yeah, it doesn't matter whether it's sexual violence.
It's sexual violence. If you care, I agree. To me, all violence, I don't really myself feel it's horrible. It's people being violent towards another.
People having limbs chopped off, being tortured in various ways,
made to eat their own flesh or the flesh of other people. Yeah. All these horrible things that George gets
damn disgusting too.
Disgusting and
traumatizing, horrible. Yeah, it's
deliberate. I think Sean Collins said that he thinks if there's one he takes out of it, just one overriding idea about these books is that they are an anti-war polemic. And George, yes, he talks about the juxtaposition of the image of a glorious knight, the great knight. We love Barristan having his skill and these things. At the same time, the horror of the feast for crows, the battlefield littered with bodies, people crying for their mothers, Arya giving mercy to a man who's been slowly dying from painful, horrible gut wound. All these things combine to show that it's horrible. Yeah. War is horrible. The violence of people perpetrating on each other is horrible. Sexual or otherwise.
You see people protesting the inclusion of something like rape, saying that, they're just doing it because it's, they're saying that's because it's, medieval history is history, whatever, and that's for realism. Well, just look at human past, present, and likely future, and you'll see that it's full of violence.
Yeah.
It's full of sexual violence. So, if we're going to write anything that features humans, fantasy or otherwise, it'd be false not to have violence. Certainly you cannot say that having violence included, that there's something wrong with it. If you're trying to depict the human nature, there's going to be violence of all kinds.
Yeah, I think it would be... people can obviously write it very crassly. I mean, violence... 300 is a very crass...
You can glory in it and just go overboard. But the very inclusion of it is by its nature not wrong.
The integrity of artists to be able to depict the world not as we wish it to be, but as it can be, is, I think, very important. And I was very surprised by certain people who seem to want to tell their fellow authors that you shouldn't be including stuff like this. No naming names, okay? I know.
You can just look at my Twitter.
Yeah. But it's just, I don't think David and Dan have handled it in the past as well as George has handled it in the novels. But then again, George has gotten plenty of stick as well for people who claim that he doesn't handle it with enough sensitivity.
But for some people, there is
no level of sensitivity that is. I mean, literally, the same people like, why do you have to include rape? It's like, George, it includes dragons and this, that. Why can't he make it so that women rule instead of men? And like people treat it like, because
arguing that fantasy means that it's a fluffy fantasy where nothing bad ever happens and it is just like you want it to be.
People can write those stories, but that's not this story. So, anyways, we'll have that separate video. I think tomorrow, with any luck, we will be posting it, and also we'll be sharing Angry God Fans video explaining why he was so down on the scene. I think in the end of the discussion, we kind of realized that we're not that far apart. It was specifically his phrasing that I had an issue with, but we'll discuss that video. Until the next episode, The Gift.
The Gift, yeah. Probably a dual meaning in that one.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see that episode, how it goes.